Hey everyone, Bill here from the Rosie and Bill Show on location at the comedy capital of the world, SoulJoel's, with Soul Joel himself, Joel Richardson. Joel, how you doing, sir?
Oh man, it's a lot of pressure, man. Comedy capital. Yeah, and we're on location. Special episode. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, we are not on Zoom and we're going live to tape. So we have no idea what's going to happen here. But one thing I do know is we're going to have a little fun.
Yeah.
And Joel, I thought we'd start by just kind of turning the clock back a little bit a few years ago. And I have to give credit to my son. I know he's watching. My son actually said back in 2020, he said, "Hey, Dad, have you had Joel Richardson on your show yet? SoulJoel's."
Yeah.
Because we lived in Royersford and you were in Royersford. And I looked into it and I'm like, oh my God, we got to have him on. And we did. And the amazing thing is, Joel was doing some things during the pandemic that nobody else was really doing, and giving an opportunity for entertainment and laughs and comedy that I didn't really see anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the conversation that we had then. And here we are now. We're not in Royersford anymore. We're in Pottstown.
Yeah.
Sunnybrook in Pottstown.
Yeah.
So how did we get from there to here?
Man, well, first of all, thanks for having me on. It's nice that your son referred us, because you always think that everyone's kind of paying attention, but this whole thing has been organic, building brick by brick, and word of mouth, people telling each other, or people hearing about it because comics talk about it on a podcast or promote it on their own social media. Even though, I've been on different social media and now we're doing billboards, it's all been word of mouth. That's where, how we've been growing. And now I'm the bingo man of Pottstown. It's crazy. Yeah. I tell people I've gotten more fulfillment out of doing all the events here. It was actually through Mike McCluskey of Railroad in Limerick. He was the first one that told me that the Sunnybrook Ballroom was open, and it was about a 1.5 year search that we did, and about 6 months to a year before we left Royersford, and 6 months to a year after. It was just that whole time period trying to look, and we looked at 30 different properties, different towns, different counties. We even looked as far as go west as Berks County.
Wow.
But this place, it fit all the boxes, and then I had so much momentum in Royersford, where we had over 30 different states attend, and during the pandemic, and so many thousands of people coming to different, socially distanced, of course.
Yes.
But we're all past that now.
Bring your own beach chair.
Yeah, exactly. And it's great. But we ended up coming here because it fit all the boxes, where it had plenty of parking, it was turnkey. I mean, we've had to put a new roof and some certain things, but Chuck Galati and the Galati family, we're looking to sell. They have the Stokes State Castle up in Reading. Okay. And they just didn't want to have two places, which ironically now, 2 years later, they've now bought Reading Country Club. But at the time I lucked out. We were looking for a new place, brought my brother-in-law in, who's now the executive chef, and runs all the catering, and he runs Gatsby's, that's his baby, and then I run all the events. So that was the short end of it. It's been a long journey, but now we do everything from dances, like I said, bingo, music events, obviously comedy, which we're known for, and from drag brunches to we have psychic mediums, and it's all great.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, the line dancing, was it on Tuesdays?
Tuesday nights, man.
That gets some big crowds.
Big crowds, yeah. And so there was a girl that came, Lori, that came to my events since King of Prussia, and she loves line dancing like I love comedy. And I went to her and I said, "Who would you recommend?" And she said, this guy, DJ Dan. So I called him up and I said, "Hey, Wednesday nights I want to do line dancing," and he said, "Tuesday nights." And I hung up the phone and I said, "Tuesday night's my open mic." And I go, "What am I doing? I could have 2 events going on at the same time. Comedy, open mics going on in here in the ballroom. That's why I'm not opening the doors just for one event." And so Sunnybrook Ballroom is line dancing every Tuesday night, open mic in here. And last night, we had 150 people. They come from an hour each direction. And it's been great ever since. It's over 2 years now that we're doing every Tuesday night, and then once a month we'll do it on a Friday.
So what does I was here for a comedy show, I don't remember if it was a Friday or Saturday, and there was line dancing going on, and between the comedy show and the line dancing, it was tough to find a parking spot, which is
exactly.
is pretty cool.
Which is another reason why we're probably thinking about getting rid of the dome, which was, you know, became a symbol of hope.
Yeah.
People had to look forward to, and it's there. Now it's like people drive on High Street, it's like blocking the view of Sunnybrook, but also it's taking up parking, and now that we're opening the restaurant, so it's people love it, and it's nothing but history and good memories for us. But I think it's kind of ran its course, so we'll probably stop using that. But yeah, and people at multiple times a week, you know, parking gets tough. But that's one thing I had to start advertising is free parking, because people don't mind driving, but that's why they don't like going into Philadelphia, because they have to pay for parking or drive around looking for parking. At least they know when they come here, they'll have a spot.
You just touched on something I want to piggyback on, because not only is the parking free, but everything is really affordable.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see headline comedians, like top-notch comedians, many of whom I've been fortunate enough to have on the show, but there's just some amazing names that you get here, and yet it's affordable. How are you able to keep everything and every aspect of this place so affordable?
Well, and that's one of the things where I've always said that I want to have make a little bit of money off a lot of people. I don't want to ever price gouge. I want people to come back multiple times a week or multiple times a month. And we don't have, we kind of buck the system where we don't have comics come for the whole weekend. It's one comic Friday, one comic Saturday. And also we don't have a minimum in here. We don't have table service. People want to have drinks, they can. And a lot of people that are in recovery or you know, whatever it is, they don't, they can come here because the drinks and everything are not shoved down their throats. They can go to the bar or eat beforehand, grab drinks and bring them in here. And there's no check spots, so there's no dip in that energy. Where headlining comics normally have to do a 5 or 6 minute, 10-minute set where they're doing new jokes, and then they land the plane by doing their best stuff. Okay. Or even the ordering. Sometimes you go to a place and you know some people are getting loud because they're ordering.
Oh, yeah.
They're vodka tonic or you know
it's a distraction.
Yeah, exactly. Jack and Coke, and it's very loud. So when everybody sits down, it's kind of like a theater where you know you have whatever you want to drink. You can leave, go to the bathroom, get more drinks, come back. But we try to keep running everything pretty smooth and efficiently.
Yeah, all you have to do is go down the hallway that is adorned with wonderful pictures on both sides, around the corner to Gatsby's, get whatever you want, bring it back, right?
Well, and that's the funny thing is that when we came here, there was a local artist that had paintings all over the wall, but people would walk past the hallway and they're like, where's SoulJoel's? I mean, the truth is I took over the whole place, but they didn't know where they were at and where the comedy show was, so we took down the paintings and we ended up putting up the pictures of all the comics, and it's definitely a conversation piece. Whether people come here for you know a wedding or whatever event, they walk down the hallway and try to say like, oh, there, you know, we have an Andrew Dice Clay jacket now, and you know, trying to turn this into a Hard Rock where there's memorabilia hanging on the wall and nothing but you know, water cooler talk, you know, icebreakers.
No, absolutely, and if you look at those pictures, folks, on those walls, you'll recognize some of the best comedians in the country, in the world. But what I also am impressed by is the fact that you give an opportunity for up and coming comedians to really have a chance to shine and to perform. So is that something that's important to you, to give them a chance?
Yeah. I mean, and I tell people all the time too, it's like when I was in New York, I had put Pete Davidson on the stage for the first time. It was 3 weeks before his 16th birthday, and then I was driving him around, you know, have him come to my shows and on the road, and I had to have a permission slip from his mom because, you know, my glove compartment, because I was transporting a minor across state lines, you know, which is wild to even think about. But yeah, it's from the start. I've always had a farm system and like to cultivate the comics and locally, and you know, have them come from an open micer to then host and feature act and then sometimes headline, or the late night comedy shows where comics from New York and Philly like to come here and work out their routine. And I always say when I open up the shows, you guys give us energy, we give you energy right back, and the comics feel that, and it's like I'm going up on stage giving my stamp of approval, like these are my guys, you're gonna enjoy them. And if you don't like the comic, well, hang in there. One's coming right behind. So yeah, because when I started, I know obviously I still like to perform, but I was with Giannis Pappas and James Mattern, and they would go down the line at the end of the show and be like, Giannis, you were hilarious. James, so funny. Joel, I enjoyed listening to you. And I'm like, wow, that's why I got into producing. You know, I'm the event planner for comedy shows and putting it all together, and I still like getting up there. But I get butterflies by securing deals, putting them on sale, and seeing. I sit in the back of the show. A lot of times, I don't just book who I like. I book comics who have their fans come out, and it's just, you can't have one point of view, and I have to book all types of comedians. And I sit in the back, and as long as the audience is laughing, those are the people I have to come back. You know, it's not just what I think's funny.
Well, and I will tell you two things. One, and folks, you've got to come, because Joel brings the energy. When he kicks off the show, you've got My Way playing.
Yeah, and that's a story in itself.
Well, what is the story?
So I always thought, when I first started doing stand-up and then I started producing my own shows, I loved Bring 'Em Out. I'm like, bring 'em out. And then it became Bring 'Em Out, not just because it's the energy of the song, bring 'em out, and I'm coming out. But then other comics told me, I bring people out. Like, and it became like hope. And we talked about during the pandemic, all these time, and I'm helping local businesses, and people are coming in from out of town and getting hotel rooms. And, you know, we have people from over 30 different states and patronizing these local businesses. But then, during that time, I had the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, and I was down in that valley trying to figure out where I was going to go. I knew everything was going to happen for a reason, and the last 5 places I thought were going to be it, and they just kept, like, they went off the market, or I put an offer in, and someone outbid me. And every time my mom got in the car, My Way from Sinatra would come on, and she's like, no matter what, she's like, you're doing it your way.
Wow.
And it's like, there's something about that, and we use it as a sign. And so that's why I love the fact that we took over this venue, because, you know, Duke Ellington and Louis Armstrong and Glenn Miller, before they even had fire code, there were 7,000 people in that ballroom. Wow. Now, you know, it's the biggest ballroom east of Mississippi. It's 14,000 square feet. That's standing room only. You're talking about like Woodstock style. And they said if you had to go to the bathroom, you stand by the stage and you had to crowd surf. Bill, all the way to the back. You think crowd surfing was Nirvana and Pearl Jam during the 90s with grunge, but it was actually Suit and a Tie with Glenn Miller in 1941.
People that had to pee.
Exactly. But so Tommy and Jimmy Dorsey, the Dorsey brothers, brought Sinatra here. He never came to headline, but he came as an up-and-comer, like I have the comics you just mentioned. And so My Way with Sinatra really became part of the song. So I had Cypher Sounds, who was the DJ for Chappelle and the Chappelle Show, and he tours with him now currently, and he's been here. He was in Royersford, DJ up in. He used to be a DJ for Hot 97 and all these other radio stations in New York. DJ from the Practical Jokers. He made that mix, so he did My Way into T.I.'s Bring 'Em Out, and then into Soul Man.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's just memories from over the years, and kind of like the journey of how we got here.
Well, yeah, and it really elevates. By the time you hit the stage, between the music and then the energy you bring, the night's already off to a great start before it even starts. Or as you're starting.
Exactly, and we keep talking about that. It's like, I don't think we haven't done that much to the building, but our team welcomes so many, and we want this to be cheers. You know, everybody knows your name, and you're coming, hey Bill, how's it going? And our staff, and I even hear this from other people, that our staff welcomes people even when I'm not around, which is great to hear. But I think it's just the vibe and the energy that we bring to this place, that it seems so much different than it used to be, because the original owners, the Hartensteins, had it from, they built this in 1931. So the ceilings and the floors were all built in the ballroom, because it was before microphones. Wow. 10 years ago, they sectioned it off. So in this room in particular, they wanted to start having conferences and stuff during the week. Well, it has the same acoustics and low ceilings, so I made this my comedy room. And but between when they sold it in 1998 to when I took over in 2022, there was 5 different owners. So 3, including myself. So I think because of the opening and closing and so much inconsistency, the first 2 years has just been reminding people that we're open and what we're doing, and we're having events for the public. Because everybody has 1 of 5 memories of this place: a wedding, a prom, the pool that was built in 1926, but then it was closed in 1998 because it got grandfathered in. You think about it, it's a bullseye a circle pool, and the bullseye is the deepest. And you go to a pool, at the edge of the pool, you normally have the deep end. Well, the deep end was 15 feet in the middle. Lifeguards couldn't reach it. In 1926, there was no rules and regulations, but the health department then decided, by the time in 1998, the original owners had gotten grandfathered in, so they ended up having to close the pool.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, but then there's also the organ, which is built in 1928.
Oh, yeah.
So it was built for a one-room movie theater in Lansdale. It made all the sound effects and the music for the silent film era. And then people play that. They used to have brunches here, the big bands, and the swimming pool, obviously. So one of those 5 memories people normally have, and I love when people share that from, whether it's them, their parents, their grandparents, or whoever. People from an hour each direction used to come here, for different events.
Yeah.
And I love hearing about it.
Yeah, and there was actually an event recently that just came to mind as you're talking about that, because Tom Coyle, when he puts on his shows, for quite a few years, it was over at the high school in Pottstown.
Mm-hmm.
And Rosie and I had, gotten to know Tom and covered some of those shows. And then I remember coming here on a Saturday night, and I was like, wow, again, the parking lot's really crowded.
Yep.
And I think Tammy Pescatelli was here that night.
Yep.
Tom's show, Bobby Wilson, all those great acts. It was just like, no matter where you went, there was a great time being
We had
had
over
by all.
700 people in through the doors from 4 o'clock to 11 o'clock. Yeah, and
Smiles everywhere, too.
Smiles everywhere. Tom is a legendary promoter. He's been doing it, he said, I think 22 years, he said. And he brought 3 headlining acts, like you said, Bobby Wilson and Raina Martin, who was originally from the area.
Yeah.
She claims Royersford.
Oh, okay,
Yeah. I don't know if it's Limerick or the
same zip code.
19468 exactly. And the Chicklets. So it was great entertainment, and it all went to the Pottstown police,
Mm-hmm.
and it was great fundraiser. We love the fact whenever our events give back, and we do it once a week on Thursday nights. We donate half the money back to various organizations, but that was on a Saturday in the ballroom, and I think we raised over $7,000 for the police, and it was phenomenal. I went and I realized I had to go to the Elks Club the following Wednesday to present the check. And I just typed in the GPS, and that's how you operate now, right? And there's no one in the parking lot. I'm like, man, this is not going to be the picture moment that I think presenting a check. And they buzzed me in. It was the bartender, the server, and me. And she goes, can I help you? I go, yeah, I'm about to present a check to the Pottstown police. She goes, there's 2 Elks clubs in Pottstown. I went to the Black Elks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's a Black Elks and a White Elks.
Okay.
And then I went to the White Elks, and that's where they were, and I was like, oh boy. But I had no idea, so you put it in the GPS.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Who knew there were 2 of them?
Who knew?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, again, that was such a great night. And I have to say, one other thing that I noticed that night, when Tammy was here, and then also when Greg Warren was here, who was hilarious.
Yeah.
There's a very distinct, you talked about sitting in the back.
Yeah.
I've come to know your laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And you are just having I don't know that anybody in here is having as much fun as you. I know
Well,
I am.
I also,
But it's just awesome to hear. You're back there laughing and having a great time too, just like everybody else.
As a performer, I know that these comics, whether they performed the night before or it's a joke that they've been doing, new or often, it doesn't matter. You could see the look on their face going, I saw that one going differently, or whatever it is, that's the part that makes me laugh. And I say this all the time. There's 2 shows going on. There's one for the audience and one for the comics. And sometimes that's just for us in the back to be like, that pain comes to suffering, and that brings the laughter. It's where it comes from. No one wants to laugh at a country club,
No, absolutely, but it's all in good fun. Like I said, everywhere, everybody's having a great time. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't take a moment to kind of look ahead a little bit. We kind of look back, talk about the current situation. What can we look forward to in 2025?
So we booked Nate Bargatze coming up.
Who?
Nate, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Murr from Impractical Jokers, James Murray, we just announced. So Nate used to headline a lot of my shows back in 18 years ago. And one time he brings this up. We did a show for 3 people. No one knew who he was. No one knew who I was as far as Soul Joel Productions. And we still did the show. And the guy who's opening and hosting for him for a year and a half on the Be Funny tour, which I didn't realize until we put this show on sale, they sold 1.2 million tickets. So he's ranked in the top 12 in Pollster that rates touring artists. But in the top 12 is Madonna, U2, and like Coldplay. And there's Nate Bargatze. So he's not just top 5 in comics, he's top 12 all artists. Yeah. And I texted Julian McCullough. Him and I went to high school together. He was a grade above me. And I said, hey man, I just put out my book earlier this year called Not Funny. That's how we got here. And I said, hey, if there's any way you can get me on Nate's podcast, that would be huge for me. And he goes, well, listen, I've been opening for him in arenas, sold out, Wells Fargo, 20,000 people. He said, for a year and a half, he's like, I haven't been on his podcast. Now, since then, he's been on, but at the time, he said, but Nate does want you to come to Wells Fargo. So,
you put a video that was on social media. Yep. I saw that.
Yeah, so that ended up happening. He brought me backstage, and as soon as I did, Nate said, hey, listen, he just finished that tour. When he does, he's taping a first special. He's going to have to, before he goes on his next tour and his next special, he needs places to work it out. So he wants to come to SoulJoel's to work out his hour, which, listen, I'm eternally grateful for. I didn't even ask. Obviously, with his fame and popularity, he doesn't need me. It was a very big favor, a very nice thing to do. And right before he hosted SNL for the second time this past October, I said, hey man, congrats on everything that's going on and SNL, have fun. And I hope you can come to SoulJoel's to work out your new hour. He texted me back within 10 minutes and he said, yeah, he says, I'm gonna get you a date. And within weeks, his assistant's calling me and saying, Tuesday, January 21st, you have line dancing? I said, not that week. Schedule's free and clear, actually. We're good to go. And we've never had this happen so fast. Put tickets on sale, 90 minutes, sold out, 1,000 tickets.
Oh my God.
Yeah, never. I mean, it nearly shut down the website. It was crazy. Yeah, and before that, it was Roarsford, Louis C.K. We announced on our website, on our email list, he sold 400 tickets in 45 minutes. So it was that pace, but we hadn't. It's like the magic is all coming back, which is amazing to see.
And I think this would be a good time for me to give another shout out to my son, because there's something he told me, Joel, the other day that really impressed me. And because we were talking about you in the club, and he said, he listens or watches, Joe Rogan, a lot of these other podcasts where a lot of comedians, big comedians go on. And he's like, Dad, I don't know if you know this, but when these guys go on, they'll talk about their tour, they'll talk about different things. He said, and when they get to Pottstown and SoulJoel's, they pause. And then they go on this 2 or 3 minute thing about what a great guy Joel is and what a great place it is and how they're just loyal to him. He's loyal to them.
Yeah.
And he's telling me all these different big names that have said that. So clearly, whether it's Nate or these other guys, you're doing things the right way.
And I try, man. I try. I mean, sometimes, you get busy and you lose sight of things, but I've always been hands-on and making sure, because that's my biggest asset is the talent, and making sure they come back. And whether there's so many animals in this business, so whether it's, stock in the green room with a few drinks and water bottles and some good food, so they're not stopping at Wendy's and McDonald's, just little things like that, and making sure they don't have to wait to get paid, and just being upfront and honest and like, hey, listen, this is, I make sure that they always leave here. It's not rocket science, but it's little things like that go
great things about your recent show at the comedy capital of the world, SoulJoel's in Pottstown. So what was it like being there?
What a place. Man, I can't speak enough good things about Joel. Comedy club owners are very unpredictable. For the most part, they are looking to get away with paying you as little as possible. And, a couple of my best friends had already worked SoulJoel's, Ryan D. Miller and Brent Terhune. We do a podcast together. They're amazing. They told Joel about me. And Joel was like, oh, you're from the Lehigh Valley? I was like, yeah. And I'm going to be home in October, for a boxing event. He goes, all right, let's do a night, Saturday night, boom.
What amazes me is, to your point, it's just kind of common decency, integrity, some of those simple things that are kind of few and far between sometimes in today's world. But I almost feel, Rosie and I have had the opportunity to have, I mentioned Greg Warren, Tammy Pescatelli. We just interviewed Chip Chantry, who's going to be here December 27th, Johnny LaQuasto, who's been here, Justin McKinney, who was just here.
Yeah.
I am amazed at how genuine and nice these guys are. They've invited me in to hang out with them in that green room. And I've seen some pretty impressive food and stuff in there too.
Yeah.
But I almost feel like part of this incredible community where there's just really, really good people. And I think the fact that you do business the way you do and have befriended these people and seeing that loyalty go both ways, I love to see it.
Yeah. Well, and the comics, I think, because I started as a comic, and sometimes when I was living in New York, I paid the comics before I paid my mortgage, and I made sure that they were always taken care of, and they don't lose sight of that, and being in the room, making the little adjustments, policing the crowd to make sure there's no hecklers, no videotaping. We have signs, and the staff is welcoming, and the comics, no matter what, like our audience members don't lose sight of the fact that these comics are coming to Pottstown, and they don't have to drive into Philadelphia. They don't have to drive wherever it is and pay for parking and the low prices, and they don't lose sight of that. And the comics come here and they feel that energy and that buzz, and it doesn't just feel like work, and they're getting to work out their material, whether it's for a special a taping or a Tonight set. I mean, Joe List, who's coming here next week, he got to, last time he was here, and Joe List is one of those comics where you don't know if he's about to go on the Tonight Show or he's just about to tape Netflix or put out a new special. He said, he goes, hey, I'm booked next Monday, but I haven't submitted the tape. And as you can imagine, a little inside baseball, because of the way the world is now, you have to submit every word. So they have to know, and like, oh, you can't say this, or and they want to know exactly what you're saying. So he goes, all right, imagine I'm coming out in a certain tie, and make a lot of noise. And he comes out, and then he did the Tonight, and then all of a sudden the comics watched him with Jimmy Fallon, and he did this whole thing, and he said, he's going to touch his ear, and he touched his ear, and people are like, that's for Pottstown. Now, he could have said that the last 10 cities, and he did that for Cleveland, and he did that for, he did that for everyone, but it still feels special, and he didn't have to do that, and it still felt cool where like the comics here, and that's what we've trained our audience to be. They're true comedy fans where they've seen Mark Norman, throw away a joke, but then and he's like, I'm never using that again. And between the 7 o'clock and the 9 o'clock show, instead of saying Pepsi, he might say Coke, or he tweaks it a little bit and it gets a big laugh, and then all of a sudden he sees it on their next special, and people are like, oh, I remember when that joke was nothing. But they like to see the process now, and this has become like a science lab where the audiences enjoy the process. Sounds like I'm stealing it from Joel Embiid and the 76ers. But this it's really happening.
Your
We're really
process
winning.
wins.
Your
process wins.
I could. I'm sorry, I stepped on that. I thought about it the second you did, and I'm like, man, we're on the same page.
I just figured I'd say it because I don't care. I had to say it because it's suffered through the process and still suffering.
That's why we need comedy.
Yes, we absolutely do. Now, I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
With all that we've talked about, all that's going on in your journey thus far, what are you most proud of?
So I just had this conversation, it's funny you say that, with my brother-in-law. He's been a chef longer than I've been in comedy, and the second time, and there's a lot of people that left and are no longer with me, and they didn't think the magic was going to happen for various reasons, and because it was Royersford and because I was there and that's where it happened, and we kind of bonded over the pandemic. But it's been a lot of the relationships that I've had and I've cultivated over the years, and the second time doing it here has been with my family. My brother-in-law is the chef, and my mom's now my office manager, and my sister Deanna is now booking all the special events and the wedding coordinator, and my sister Laura is running the events and is a bartender. My niece and nephews on the weekends are helping me seat. To have the whole family be a part of this has been sweet, and I'm very proud of that.
Wow, that's definitely something to be proud. I didn't realize that.
That
something to be.
If you would have
proud
asked me that question 10 days ago, I might not have given you the same answer. But that
Yeah,
was
but that's from the heart.
that was a revelation that just happened. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Because we just had our 5-year anniversary. We've now been here longer than we were in Royersford, and there was a year in between, which is funny because we opened November 1st, 2019. We went from 1 day a week to being open 5 days a week at the end of February. 2 weeks later, shut down, and we closed down, not realizing our lease was about to end. With Gilbert Godfrey, booked 6 months out, not realizing it was one of his last shows. He was about to die, and we then opened here, or took over on October 31st, and that's just because the bank said we're closing next Monday. And you look at the calendar, you're like, it's October 31st.
Wow.
So we
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, exactly. So we opened November 1st, last show in Royersford October 30th. 1 year later, on our 3-year anniversary, we opened up, we took over here on Halloween. So those things were all 3 days apart, 3 years apart. Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, it definitely is, and I know there's some shows coming up that I'm looking forward to coming to. Looking forward to some big things in 2025, and looking forward to doing this again with you at some point soon too, Joel.
There's
Really
always going to be a
appreciate it.
story. I appreciate
Yeah.
you, man.
You got it,
yeah.
man.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Joel.
Thanks for having me.
All right, you got it, folks. Thank you for watching. Couldn't do this without you. See you next time.